The one thing I had wanted to do while we were in South America was find the Mapinguari. And now that we had accomplished that, we didn't really have our sights set on anything else in particular. So we were currently traveling through Bolivia, just making our way around until a sighting or local legend caught our eye. Which is exactly what happened when we found a news story about some recent animal attacks.
What you got there? Do we have a lead?
Yeah, I think so. I found a promising article out of Chile.
What's going on in Chile?
Cattle are being found dead with strange puncture marks.
What, like the chupacabra?
Not quite. So, you remember the chupacabra had a 3-pronged tongue thing? It left wounds in a little triangular pattern?
Yeah.
Well, these wounds are just in pairs. And the chupacabra usually just fed on a creature once. Here, though, they're all over the body. So whatever attacked these cows either attacked it a lot or there was a group of them.
Any idea what might be behind it?
None whatsoever. There haven't been any reported sightings, so either no one saw anything or no one is talking.
Definitely sounds like a potential cryptid.
My thoughts exactly.
So are we going to check this out or what?
I mean, why not? We've got nothing else going on. Cryptid or not, it's definitely interesting. And mysterious.
Sounds like a plan.
The attacks had taken place across a series of neighboring farms. Our destination would be the town closest to these, a small place on the outskirts of the Andes Mountains. Oh, wow, I totally forgot your grandfather came to Chile once.
Did he really?
Yeah. Ugh, I tried to forget about that.
Monster related?
Yep.
What was he after?
The Sharufe?
Basically a fire-breathing crocodile with human-level intelligence.
Shit. Really? I always thought that one was just a legend.
It was real, alright. Decapitated like a dozen men before he stopped it. And I don't even know if it really died or not. He ended up burying it under a pile of rubble.
Well, if any of these dead animals have burn marks, we'll know where to start looking.
Very funny.
Given that the attacks were all pretty recent, we traveled a little quicker than we had been, and we managed to arrive in town within about a week. In the time it took us to get there, the attacks hadn't slowed down. As usual, Faulkner started asking around.
People are tense.
Yeah?
Dude, their livelihoods are at stake.
Of course. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
The farmers have taken to guarding their land at night. Whatever's causing the attacks, they haven't been able to stop it.
So, no sightings?
Maybe. It's hard to say.
Maybe?
I found one person who might have seen something. There's this lake, a few miles out past all the farmland. They said they saw something in the water 4 nights ago. They couldn't give me a good description, either because it was dark or just because it's a monster. But they said they could tell it wasn't a fish or anything else they were familiar with.
So, a lake monster?
I don't know. If it's attacking animals on land, it can't be entirely aquatic.
Maybe something like the deep ones or the Gator Man?
Maybe.
Okay, well, I'll start looking at local legends, see if I can find anything.
Sounds good. Looks like Fritz wants to help.
So, with Fritz's help, and definitely not a distraction, I got to researching. I was looking for any Chilean monster sightings or legends I could find that might be aquatic but could also conceivably travel on land. Alright, I've got a few potential leads from this corner of the world.
Let's hear them.
Okay. All of them are a bit more on the obscure side, but we know that never means much. First up is El Cuero. The name means leather or cowhide, because that's what it looks like. Just a big flat blanket thing that lunges out of the water like a crocodile and attacks people. It's also said to have eyes on stalks and a proboscis through which it drains people of their blood.
A vampire blanket?
That's how the story goes. I couldn't really find any sightings of this one, but possible theories include some type of freshwater octopus or jellyfish.
Duly noted.
Next up is the Camahueto, meaning very bad.
Oh, come on! That might be a winner for the least descriptive name of all time.
In their defense, I don't know what else you would call it. The Camahueto is described as some kind of mix between a bull and a walrus, with one large horn. For some reason, the horn is described as unicorn-like, but I think rhino or narwhal would be a little more generous. Once again, no witness reports that I could find, but it is supposedly carnivorous. According to legend, they are born in rivers and migrate to the ocean, where they can then grow large enough to sink ships and carry 12 men on their backs. And lastly, we have the Ayamish, or water tiger, usually described as something like a giant saber-toothed otter. The one sighting also said it looked like a furry plesiosaur. Reportedly known for eating both men and horses. There are actually a few sightings from the early 1900s, but they were pretty much all short accounts of somebody briefly seeing something that was far away. But yeah, that's it.
Well, those are certainly a diverse set of possibilities. Let's get started and just head out there, I guess. Whatever it is, it's clearly pretty dangerous. So, Faulkner, you should probably join us again.
Can do, boss.
If we were dealing with an aquatic creature, focusing on the lake made the most sense. So, once we were out there, we set up bait and traps and cameras all around the perimeter. Besides that, though, since we had no idea what we might be dealing with, we decided that we would just wait a few days to see if anything took the bait and decide what to do from there. So, once everything was set up, we went back to camp and waited. Can I ask you something?
Long as I'm on payroll, you can ask me whatever you want.
I have always been curious. How'd you get your start as a mercenary? I mean, like a cryptid mercenary, no less.
Oh, it's really not that interesting.
Really? You just woke up one day and decided to hunt monsters? Come on, that doesn't come out of nowhere.
I don't know. I learned hunting from my dad. He was a real hard ass. Served in the Marines. Wanted me to be just like him. But that wasn't for me. Saw my first monster around 98, 99. Ultima. A lake monster.
No way! Our first cryptid was a lake monster too. Champ.
Yeah? How about that? I was with some buddies at the time. When they started to deny what happened, I knew I had some kind of gift to see monsters and remember them. Anyway, my dad got cancer, and somebody needed to pay for chemo. God knows he couldn't afford it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't be. That prick never did anything good for me in his life. But, long story short, I ended up finding some people in the know. People who wanted a unique trophy. Eventually, word got around in the right circles. And whenever anybody had a job involving monsters, they called me. Turns out I ended up liking it too. See? Like I told you, simple story.
After waiting 2 days, we returned to the traps we had set and checked the cameras. None of the bait had been taken, but they did all have puncture wounds in the same pattern as the farm attacks. Not to mention, most of the cameras had been triggered.
Not a single one of these pictures came out right. This is definitely the fog.
I don't think we're dealing with a lake monster, though.
No? Why not?
Look around. There's mud everywhere. And no prints. At least, nothing out of the ordinary.
You're right. Some kind of bird, maybe?
Bird, bat, a gigantic bug, something that flies.
Even with the lake sighting?
I mean, there are plenty of birds that can swim and fly.
Ducks, geese, swans.
Right. Yes, thank you for clarifying. So we're looking for, what, a killer duck?
I still don't know what we're looking for, but there is something here.
If we were going after a flying creature, that changed things significantly. If this thing was no longer confined to the lake, it could be pretty much anywhere. Mia hadn't sensed anything either, so we decided to just start exploring the area and hopefully see what we could find. Hey, so, you know how we were talking about lake monsters the other day?
Yeah?
I forgot about it until now, but there's something I always want to ask someone with your, cryptid experience.
Really? Shoot.
Did you ever see the Loch Ness Monster?
I've been to Loch Ness, yeah, but no monster. It's just a hoax.
Ha! Your grandfather was right.
You doubted him?
Well, no, but just wanted a second opinion.
You hear that?
Is that from one of the farms?
Yeah, must be.
You can barely hear it.
What if they're louder some nights?
You think the sound might be what attracts this thing?
There's one way to find out.
We called it a night and went back to camp to get some sleep. The next night, we set up a speaker about halfway between the farms and the lake.
You ready?
Let's do it.
What the hell was that?
They're coming out of the lake!
Get down! Almost got you.
Thanks. What the are they?
They look like manta rays?
Flying f***ing manta rays.
We need to get out of here.
Agreed.
When the speaker started to play, at least a half dozen creatures had come flying out of the lake in our direction. One dove down to attack Mia, but Faulkner managed to shoot it first. The gunshot scared the others away, at least momentarily. We cut the speaker and hightailed it out of there before they regrouped for another attack. We returned the next morning to examine the body of the one Faulkner had killed.
Would you look at that? Black and white. Just like a cow.
And it is kind of wide and flat. I guess it must be El Cuero after all.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch more of them in the lake. What the fuck do we do now?
Well, it's a safe bet they're attracted to noise. Herds must have gotten too close in the past few weeks.
Yeah, otherwise there'd be a lot more attacks and sightings.
Well, I'd say there's too many of them to relocate, so it looks like our options are either to kill them all or find a way to keep everyone away from the lake.
You're right. We did do that once before with the Naitaka. We can try something like that again.
Something like what?
After a little brainstorming, we got right to work. Between some carefully constructed forgeries, deception, and a tiny bribe or two, we convinced the local government that the wounds on the dead cattle were not puncture wounds, but were in fact the result of an extremely aggressive and rare form of radiation poisoning, and that the lake was highly toxic. It took about a week to get things in motion, but we finally did it.
Well?
I'd say it worked, all right. All the roads leading up to the lake are blocked off, and there are signs everywhere now. I can already tell the farmers are moving their herds, too.
Oh, that's a relief.
That was a good plan.
Thank you.
We couldn't have done it without your help.
Field notes. El Cuero. It turns out the creature known as El Cuero is actually some type of ray that is capable of flight. More specifically, it looked like a relative of mantas or devil rays, which have forward-facing mouths, as opposed to stingrays, whose mouths are on their underside. We saw numerous specimens, with wingspans averaging between 3 and 4 feet long, and also about 4 feet long including their tail. True to their name, their tops were covered in mottled black and white spots, which did resemble the typical cow pattern. And on the bottom, they were just plain white. While they did have a long, thin tail like most rays, the end of the tail actually looked like, what'd Lucas say it was? A Rhamphorhynchus. It had a vaguely diamond-shaped fan on the tail's end, similar to long-tailed pterosaurs. Apparently, in pterosaurs, they were used to stabilize the tail while in flight, so it's safe to assume it probably serves a similar purpose here. And as with mantas, there was no evidence of a stinger. Now, mantis and devil rays also have unique cephalic fins in the front of their face, close to their eyes, and the cuero did as well. On the cuero, however, these fins ended in a spike or claw. It's clear from the puncture wounds on the dead cows that they used these to attack their prey, and then perhaps drink their blood like a vampire bat. It's not a process I really want to observe firsthand, though. As for the most important part of its biology, they can fly. I initially had some trouble believing what I was seeing, but as far as cryptids go, it's actually not the most outlandish ability we've seen. Manta rays, like many fish and dolphins and whales, are known to jump out of the water, and even flap their fins like wings. In addition, there are plenty of fish, like snakeheads, that can survive out of the water for hours at a time, due to numerous different methods like gill adaptations and even lungs. As evidenced, the cuero is nocturnal and extremely aggressive. I don't know how much it preys on fish and other aquatic creatures, but it seems like, for terrestrial prey at least, they hunt primarily based on sound. Hopefully there aren't many specimens out there besides the ones we encountered. And hopefully people continue to stay far, far away from this lake. End field notes.
The Cryptid Cases has been a production of Little Giant Monsters. Find out more about us at littlegiantmonsters.com and by searching for Little Giant Monsters on social media. Every Monday after a new episode, we share a cryptid sketch, so be sure to look out for that. If you're enjoying the Cryptid Cases and want to help support us, find us on Patreon. Rewards include behind-the-scenes content, early access to episodes, and access to our Discord. A huge thanks to all our current patrons. Links to our Patreon, our merch, and other shows we're creating are all available on our website or in the description of this episode. Another way to support our work is through ratings and comments on Apple Podcasts and other podcast apps. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.